Good morning.
So I want to start with this, Julian. You know, one of the students who is involved in this March 24th rally says this is students begging for their lives. Can the student activism make a difference in Washington?
I think it can. I think if the Republican Party starts to listen to not just students, but a majority of Americans want stronger gun laws. You know, we have a mass shooting in this country almost every single day. 100 Americans, 7 kids are killed every single day by handguns. If you live in America, you are anywhere from 10 to 300 times more likely to be killed with a handgun than if you live in another industrialized country. And the idea that the background check system that we have in place right now, if it were better enforced, yes, there are instances where the FBI, as in the Parkland case, did not do its job. But the idea that just enforcing existing laws would work to solve our gun problem is absurd. The gun background check system is full of loopholes. Terrorists can buy guns easily. Mass murderers can buy weapons of mass destruction, automatic weapons, easily by simply going on the internet or purchasing guns from private sellers or going to gun shows. So I think the existing background check system is a joke. It is far too easy for people to buy automatic and semi-automatic weapons, the choice weapon that mass murderers use. And I think what the students are saying is what most of the country is saying, which is it's time that Congress did its job and started protecting the American people the way most other countries protect their people.
David, I want to get your reaction to what Julian just said, essentially that just enforcing what's in place isn't enough. Your reaction?
We have children who need to be rallying for their schools and asking for more security and demanding more security. But let's take Julian's comment for a second, and let's go completely Australia and confiscate all guns, which is ultimately what Julian is trying to get us to do.
No, that's not what I'm arguing.
Hang on, Julian, let him finish.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Julian, let David finish.
And many of these activists, that's exactly what they want. So let's do that.
No,
then what happens when a deranged individual figures out a way to get a gun from a foreign nation into our country and goes in and shoots up a school? What's the discussion that happens then? Let's have that discussion now. Let's have a serious discussion about what actually would make our schools safer. More security in our schools. Schools are some of the least secure public buildings anyone has to go into. President Trump ought to call the Secretary of Education into his office and say, you are now in charge of the Department of Education Security, and find every outdated, outmoded, duplicate program and take that money and actually make our schools more secure and not worry about an education bureaucracy sitting in Washington, D.C. If you want to solve the problems of what's going on in the schools, there's a far better way to do it than what Julian's advocating.
Okay, so David, you're saying, heavier defenses in schools. Julian, your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, the reason that voters are so tired of people in Washington is because of these talking points that the NRA puts out that David just parrots. The students are not asking for airport-style security at the schools. The students are asking for what other countries do, which is what most other countries do, which is to impose reasonable gun safety laws so that the wrong people don't get their hands on guns. Nobody's talking about an Australia-type system. That's a weak argument on the part of David. It's a straw man argument because he doesn't have a better argument. The real fact of the matter is, let me finish the point if I may. The real fact of the matter is, if you're a terrorist, if you're a mass murderer, and you want to get your hands on an automatic weapon in this country, you can do so. It's very easy by going to a private seller, going to a gun show. In many cases, these mass murderers, people are getting guns from their relatives or from friends. And the reason that we have such an excessive amount of gun violence, if you look at, for example, Japan, they have less than 1/300th as much gun deaths in this country, and most other countries have a small fraction of what we have. It's because they do smart things to keep guns out of the hands of wrong people. David using the Australia argument just betrays what a weak set of facts and argument he has to make.
I want to get back to the children. I'll give you a chance in a second here, David, but I wanted to get back to the children on this because really they're the ones who are being active right now, and they're the ones who are saying our lives are at risk. So I want to ask you, Julian brought up the NRA. A lot of these students are calling out the NRA. How should should the NRA react to this?
Look, the NRA is effective because they have members nationwide, which, whether Julian wants to admit it or not, have Republicans and Democrats in them. You have members of Congress that are Democrats in Congress who don't support many of the measures that Julian is talking about. But let's go back to something he said. He said He says students shouldn't have the same level of security and aren't calling for the same level of securities that we have in airports, which is absurd that somehow we ought to have tighter security in our airports than what we should have in our public schools, which is exactly what Julian just said.
Well, this is certainly a debate that's going to continue.
David.
It's certainly a debate that's going to continue.
Julian,
go ahead with a very quick reaction.
There's no question that we need more security in schools, but that's not the answer. That's the NRA ploy. That's the game that the NRA wants to do because they want to be able to sell more guns that are ending up creating blood on the hands of bloodshed for so many different Americans. The idea that David can't even part from the NRA to say that we need basic restrictions that other countries know, that we know from all the public health data work and that would save thousands of lives in this country, just as all he's doing is just being a parrot for the gun lobby here. And that's why people are so sick of Washington.
Julian, what's your answer when there's a school shooting after the guns you want confiscated or gone? What's your answer when there's a school shooting?
No one's talking about gun confiscation.
Sorry, guys, we got to go.
People are talking about preventing them in the first place, David.
Julian, David, certainly a topic that gets a lot of people's blood boiling. I think at this point, though, the question is how we answer to these students and how to make them feel safe. Thank you both for joining us today.